Here's where I want to pick up on today, verse 6. The Bible says that now there was a day when the sons of man, when the sons of God would come to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan also came among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, from where do you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. We'll go down to verse 8, and that's going to be it. Then the Lord said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job? I want to tell you on today, if I could name a title to this, it would be a few things I think you should consider. Just a few things I think you should consider. I think maybe there are some issues, some weights, there are some circumstances that you look at on today. Maybe you are not like many people, but you're different. And so many things that you face, a lot of people you try and explain it to don't understand the war, the battle, the situation that you're placed in when you try and explain it to them. It's not that they're foreign. It's just this favored life, the life God has spoken for you, the favor that shines over you is not something that they're used to. And so I believe many people have come to doubt you, not in depiction of who you are, but in understanding of where you are. So you're not in a season to just be handled any kind of way. You're not just to be played with on yesterday or on today. But for somebody in the room on today, I've got to tell you that a few things that you should consider is why the attack may be facing you and not you running from it. I know that we live in a temper tantrum world. That we live in a time where people are always on edge. And it seems to be the brute of the war, the real aggressor of the fight, the real enemy in this season is not all the time the devil. A lot of the times it is the enemy inside of them that makes them hate you just because they look at you and they see the glory still on you. I'm talking to somebody on today that you've been blessed when you got up and blessed when you lay down. You've been blessed when you came in and blessed when you walked out. You was blessed when they hired you and blessed when they fired you. You was blessed before the promotion, and you still gonna be walking in favor after the promotion. I'm not here to talk about the prosperity gospel. I'm here to talk about the job that maybe you should consider. You should consider God has you on a destined purpose. You should consider that the favor and the weight that's over your life is not to come here and to doubt him and die, but to stand up and say that it's my job, if it's nobody's else, to testify of the goodness of the God who sent me, who spared me, who woke me up and decided that I could come here only to testify that it's the job of somebody like me, a servant of him, to share for the world that there is somebody who still found favor in me. On this particular verse, in this particular text, I find here that Job fits the category of somebody to be considered. I think there are some things that need to be considered on today. I think maybe there's some stuff that you've overlooked in your life that needs to be considered. Maybe instead of looking at all the bad, maybe we can pause for a second and highlight maybe just a little bit of the good. That when somebody didn't wake up who was more faithful yesterday, God decided still to ring my bell and wake me up this morning. For somebody yesterday, your path, your journey, your walk, everything that you did up until that point deserves you to have accidents happen to you. And it's not anything of you or me that's been good, but it's the God who is over us, the God who holds us, the God who keeps us, who has kept us along on this way. You should consider everything you didn't thank God for yesterday, that he still allowed you to wake up and see on today. You should consider every heartache and every pain, every bad friend and every hateful enemy, every person who came lying saying that they love, but really in intent they was acting like they hate. You should consider everything that God didn't let get to you, that God removed from you. Now, I'm just saying that there are some things that you should consider. On today, when we come to Job chapter 1 and verse 6, 7, and 8, the Bible says, "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came amongst them." I want to just pause just for 1 second here. I really gotta tell you this the way that I really feel it. In my understanding, in all the chapters, all the stories, all of the books of the Bible that I read, I really find no proof for the devil. I only see proof for the enemy. But see, that root word comes from the Latin word imicus, which relates to something that's inside of me. When I find here that there is a discussion, I find that the enemy is only talking when the sons of God have been presented. You got to know that most of the time your biggest enemy is not going to be some spiritual force opposing you. Remember, God has not given you the spirit of fear, but of love, courage, and a sound mind. And if God didn't give it, then it must not be created. Then it must be something that is imaginative. Prove it, preacher. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against something that is spiritual in high places, that the wickedness that is of your mind, that you struggle with a man to think that the enemy would be a spiritual being equal to God, opposing you, and God let that happen when no infringement is love, but knowing that God has love for you. That's why he allowed them to come here and play you. Maybe you should consider some people only come to attack because they are threatened. So some people only come to attack because of the lie that they made up in their head, that they're trying to live a life that's above them and what they perceive to be beyond you. But see, the problem here is that they couldn't keep up with what the ministry was, that they couldn't keep up with the calling. They couldn't keep up with your lifestyle and the way that you lived it, the way that you talked it, the way that you walked in it, the path that you were on it, God had placed you in. They couldn't keep up with it. So instead of them trying to copy it and fail, what they decided to do was to hate on you. And I'm going to tell you on today, maybe some people prevail by the plan of God. If every attack does not fail, if every attack isn't turned down, if every time that you face an enemy in this season, it's not going to be faced with victory for you and defeat for them. That sometimes the enemy gets a leg up. Sometimes the enemy is able to overcome. Sometimes he get a punch or two in. But I need to tell you on today that there are just a few things, just a few things that you need to consider here. Let me go down just to the next verse. It says, "And Satan said, well, the Lord said unto Satan, where have you come from?" And he says, "I've been going to fro on the earth, walking back and forth on it." I know many times, we look at the fight as something that's just random. How is it after I just prayed for peace, you seem to be under attack? It seemed like I paid for the promotion and my enemy, the one who's been talking, ain't never did a day of work, actually get it. I'm talking about you fighting to stay faithful, and everybody wearing a short mini skirt. I'm talking about you ain't seen nobody in the inbox all year round. The minute you go down the aisle, the second you put the ring on, the minute you make the commitment, that's when all hell breaks loose in it. Inbox go crazy. I'm talking about you trying to stay strong in a place where everybody else is a sharing addict. I'm talking about friendly with the drugs. You gotta know that the enemy's attack over you is not something that was happenstantial, not something that just fell out of osmosis, but it is something that was planned. Prove it, preacher. Where have you been? God asked the enemy. He said, going back and forth, to and fro. You got to know that sometimes when you're facing hell all around you, that it's only a sign that destiny's greater appointment is on you, that God's favor is still surrounding you, and the grace of him is still on you. And for somebody in the room on today, on this morning, you got to know that the only reason that the enemy is walking around you is because the grace is on you. You got to know he's been walking to and fro because he's been looking after you. He's been speaking at you. He's been spying in on you, trying to find out, trying to understand, trying to see what it is that you had to say on yesterday to oppose you and attacking you on today. Says, I've been going back and forth, to and fro, up and down, all around in it. And God says, have you considered? That's the next verse, verse 8. It says, have you considered my servant Job? There ain't nobody like him. But watch this. Verse 9 says, yeah, I've seen him. But the only reason he served you the way he do, the only reason he praises you the way he does, the only reason he still go to church the way he do, drive the way he do, preach the way he do, sing the way she does, the only reason that you do, the enemy said, is because you got your hedge fence around them. And I've only come on today to tell you the last thing that you should consider is one of the first things that the enemy ought to consider before he came to oppose you, before friends turned their back on you, before family tried to deny you, before friends who was there claiming to be to the end until spouses walked away on you. I'm saying on today, the last thing you should consider, should have been the first thing that they consider, is that you can't put your hands on me. You can't hurt me. God only brings you, allows the enemy to oppose you only to a certain extent because his hedge is around me. And for somebody in the room on today, you got to know that God's hedge is around you. I know that they doubted you and they were slated about it, said that you couldn't achieve it and you wouldn't be promoted by it. That's all right. Let them say what they will, because the will of God over you is to protect you. And I know that nothing that they could say could do any damage to me, because they're only able to say it because they cannot touch me. They can't touch you in this season because his hands are on you. His hands are on you. Prove it, preacher. I got my hedge around them. That's what God said in response to the enemy that said, I've only been able to look at him. God says, I know you've been looking at him. I know you've been planning against him. I know you've been plotting. I know you've been lying. I know you've been speaking evil against him. I know you've been talking about it. My God, but the enemy did not consider on today. All he can do is talk about you. All he can do is spread lies and rumors and try and defamate your character and try and slander your name. The only thing he could do was pull up false allegations in the attack. But anybody in the room on today know that all the enemy came on to do would be denied of him, because all he's able to do is to stand around and look at it. Because when God has his hedge fence around you, I am protected from the top of my head down to the sole of my feet. Maybe the enemy should have considered that on today. No, you don't need to consider everything that he's doing, but maybe he should consider some of the stuff God has done through you. He's only done this so that you can know, you can testify, you can reason in word on today and say, maybe the enemy should have considered that the best he gonna get is just looking at this. You can't touch what God protects. He has his hedge fence